Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Today, if you're on YouTube, this is an audio only episode, so your camera and computer is working correctly. Today, we have a friend of mine who I met on Reddit on the Survival Prepper subreddit, and Simon has impressed me with his survival knowledge. So, we're going to dig deep into his background and survival knowledge and how we could possibly prepare for a Mad Max scenario. So, thanks very much for coming on the show tonight, Simon. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
What was it that got you into the whole prepping and survival?
Well, I live in a flood-prone region, so I thought it might be prudent to at least have a week's worth of food. And I always liked going hiking outdoors, and the love for nature basically drove me into survival.
So what
Um,
I get from your posts on Reddit is that you're not just preparing for a week's survival, you're preparing for like indefinite survival. And one of the things that really impressed me was your knowledge of like I think it was walnut trees and it had like greater calories per unit meter squared of like wheat and stuff like that. So just fascinating, mate.
yeah, hazelnut trees. Specifically, I was looking into Mesolithic, so Stone Age cultivation of the hazelnut, and the fact that the hazelnut tree basically traveled with the Mesolithic tribes. We planted them where we went. And yeah, I've been looking into food forests quite a lot. And acorns and hazelnut trees, they do produce more food than, for example, a medieval wheat field.
So what's the difference between a medieval wheat field and say a modern wheat field?
The difference is like after the Green Revolution, we had access to like, high amounts of fertilizer and pesticides and herbicides and fungicides, which dramatically increased yield, with the downside that we have a massive amount of soil erosion. So yeah, we will there will be a point where we will no longer be able to sustain this level of agriculture.
When would that point be and what would be the signs of it being?
Suppose it depends, like for example in Europe, they we would reach that point earlier than in areas where we haven't been using a high intensity amount of agriculture. But overall, scientists say that in about 60 years, we'll be running out of topsoil. Now, of course, you will basically see lower yields every year, um, no matter how much you fertilize. That will be basically signs of decreased yields. Yeah, higher food
So
prices.
So what scientists are saying that? Are they internationally renowned or are they more kind of on the edge of science, shall we say?
No, this is like a widely accepted thing that we are running out of topsoil. It's more the year number that they're fighting, not fighting, arguing about. It's some say 60, some say we still have 80 years, but if one or the other one is true, we will still see decreased yields, and there are just some plants you can't grow in lower, like thinner and thinner layers of topsoil.
So what is the definition of topsoil?
So topsoil would be the um the layer of the ground that is able to support plant life, essentially. So you have topsoil, and then you have mostly clay under that, and depending like what your region is, it gets more and more rocky, and then you get um, just stone essentially. So the layer of topsoil varies from area to area, but overall we are losing we are losing it slowly, and it takes a long time to refill itself, essentially. So yeah.
So like when I go to the garden store, it seems like there's almost an unlimited amount of topsoil bags that I can buy. Would it take so long to sort of regenerate itself in a modern agricultural field?
Well, the layers of topsoil you buy in the store are have to go from somewhere, so they're dug up. They are not regenerated somewhere. There's no factory that produces topsoil. it gets dug up somewhere and filled into bags. And there are certain things we do and we can do to increase topsoil, at least protect it from eroding, but it's either extremely energy intensive, like constantly mixing humus under it, or you're just slowing it down, just slowing down the decay. But yeah, overall, there's certain things you can do, but we are not doing them currently, or
So
very
what do
little.
you see? Mix what underneath it? Hummus?
Sorry, I'm German speaker, so bear
Uh-huh.
with me a little bit. So
It's okay.
when you compost,
Oh, compost. I thought you
um,
said hummus. Okay.
yeah, yeah, sorry, no, compost, we can, of course, we can produce that in big style. Um, it's just rotting organic matter. We can do that, but to like to produce enough of that to stop or even start to regenerate the topsoil that we're currently using for modern agriculture, it is just not in the cards.
So what's the difference between topsoil and compost?
So topsoil is essentially what compost is, but um, like more and more like yeah, I guess used up or digested by microorganisms. Whereas compost is more concentrated. It's still rotting, whereas most of topsoil has either stopped rotting, or is still like slightly rotting. And it's full of the nutrients and things the plants need. In compost, it's still a little bit bound. And some plants can't handle the nutrient concentration that compost has. That's why you're supposed to mix it with topsoil.
So what is it about modern farming methods that damage the topsoil versus native Neolithical, Stone Age, whatever farming?
Essentially, the plough is the biggest problem. What the plough does, because you if you look at topsoil, it's not just like worms everywhere. It has different layers in and of itself, but different microorganisms exist. And together with the moisture and things, they kind of bind it together. If you have a good layer of topsoil, you like grab it, like sticks together and can form this like ball thing. Whereas with agricultural soil we most have, it's very crumbly, very dusty. Because every time you go with a plow, like under these layers, basically flip it over, you're killing all the microorganisms in there. Since you're constantly exposing them to a environment that they're not used to. You know, the top, the lower ones go at the top, exposed to the sun, they die,
Yeah.
and the ones that like the sun and the air get pushed under and they die.
Uh-huh.
Um, so you kind of cripple the soil's ability to, regenerate itself because those things are lacking. And then our fields, if you have like a steppe or a grassland, Um, those grasses like stand there for hundreds of years. Grass can get very old, and every year it makes more roots and it holds the whole thing together. Whereas with modern farming, we have, wheat, for example, um, late autumn, um, winter, and early spring. There's just nothing on that field, so wind and water can erode it away. Then when there's actually something on the field, it doesn't stay there for long. It can't really make these like big bundles of roots that can hold the ground together. Since we bred um plants like our plants we bred them to grow quickly and to have lots of fruit and to be easily harvestable. They're basically made to put all of their energy into their fruit so we can eat it. And that way they can't really rip into the soil that well because not supposed to, it's just like they're gone in a few months. And after that, we plow it over, and which destroys the little bits of fruit that manage to like cling into the soil. So every year we are through ploughing, through monocrop culture, and through plants that only la we only they only are there for a year. We exacerbate the problem of topsoil erosion.
So if we didn't have modern farmer methods, wouldn't lots of people starve?
Oh, yes, that is true. That is kind of the catch-22 of the Green Revolution. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. If we stop with this farming method, at least for quite a while, we will have famines. And that is horrible, of course. And on the other hand, if we keep going like this, our population will keep growing, and at some point, we will not be able to do it even if we wanted to. So we kind of like locked ourselves into this box that, you know, if basically it's a box in the water with a lot of sharks, it's sinking. You stay in the box, you drown, get out of the box, you get eaten by sharks. So I will be honest with you, I don't have a solution really. Of course, we can, like on an individual level. I spread hazelnut seeds everywhere I can to as to spread these perennial food crops that I don't have to grow. And that could maybe like buffer famine a little bit, but I will be honest, I don't have an answer.
I think that would be a fascinating science fiction novel to write about the gradual erosion of the topsoil and following some characters through a period of like 20, 30 years. I'm going to have to
Absolutely.
check for novels that are written that way, but it would have to be written in a very scientific way. Maybe that's, if you're a budding writer, one that you could write. Would be certainly very interesting to
Yeah. Thing is, um, society is dying off because they can't farm anymore. It's not a new thing. There's there have been ancient societies that have died off because they destroyed the environment through one farming method or another thing they did, and that was the end of them. It is inevitably the fate of a civilization. We are civilizations, our societies based on growth. At some point, you reach a limit, and when it can't grow anymore, it starts dying. We've
What's an example of
expanded for
such a
quite a
civilization?
Mayans are a great example. Their downfall was chalk. So it's my favorite example. So the Mayans, great civilization, did lots of cool things. They loved they coated the houses in chalk. Um, and you need to burn chalk to be able to use it like a plaster. And to burn it, they used up wood, and they cut more wood, and they cut more wood, up to a point where, funny thing actually, forests are their own water pump. Coastal forests pull water from the ocean in the form of clouds deeper inland, and if there's a continuous forest, that's why the Amazon rainforest can expand so far inland because it's basically its own water from the ocean through condensation, and then clouds happen, they rain down, and again. But what the Mayans essentially did is deforest the area so much that they started experiencing heavier and heavier droughts, and their agriculture failed. They died. Other civilizations then took their place, but they were assumed as the Mayans, even for another reason. The introduction of the plough caused famines in northern Germany, northern Germanic area, and when the to topsoil erosion partially, and when those tribes died off, um, then Nordic tribes of Scandinavia settled there, and that's why northern Germany has more ethnic in common with the Scandinavians. It's just that when previously civilizations were more isolated, there were still vast areas of uncharted land. So a civilization could die off. Overall, nature wouldn't be that affected, And when another one took its place, nature had mostly healed by that point. Now we're everywhere. We are to the furthest reaches of the globe. And I fear that when we inevitably do collapse, that we'll take the rest of nature with us if we continue like this.
So that's you're the only person I know that is actually planting trees around your, I guess, suburban areas. How long does it
Quite
take
rural.
to, okay, and so how long does it take for a hazelnut to provide nutrition once you plant it?
Hazelnut has a big advantage. It's by far the quickest growing nut tree. Doesn't say much. It's 5 to 6 years before the first nuts arrive, and then another 4 to 5 years before it carries um its full load.
And how do you go about planting a hazelnut tree?
Well, um, I have when I go hiking with me, when I go foraging or just for nature walks, I guess. Always have a pouch with me. It's filled with hazelnut seeds and wild onion seeds and whatever seeds of plants I really like to eat outside I can gather. And then I look for places where the forest has kind of been disturbed through human activity or storms and just plant them in the ground. You know, small hole, nut inside, cover it. Hazelnuts are quite hardy. They can survive a bit, and I've seen some success actually. There's a hazelnut bush that I've sown 4 years ago, private property that we used to cultivate. Now we've given it back to the owner, and the owners let the hazelnut tree be, and it's growing quite nicely and having fruit. So yeah, it works.
I think hazelnut's one of my favorite construction materials that wood so strong and flexible.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I love the hazel. I have made multiple bows from the hazel. I use them for my arrows. I almost feel too bad chopping it down because it's such a versatile tree. Um, I my recent bows I'm making from black locust, which is an invasive in the area. But for my fiance, I have a hazelnut self bow. I love it. It's a great bushcraft wood, and so fast like regrowing as well. It's actually if you coppice a hazel, like if you take one of the big branches out, you're doing it a service. It'll produce more hazelnuts the next year because you kind of give the plant a kick, and it will sprout new stems, and those will carry more hazelnuts.
So was this young maiden wooed by your bushcraft and survival skills?
Sorry.
Was it your survival skills that managed to attract this young maiden to become your fiance?
Ah, well, actually, yes. Our first date, our first date was a week-long survival course. Um,
Okay.
and she butchered a deer, and I was looking at her, and she was like currently holding the heart of the deer in her hand, and was just like really going elbow deep, and was looking at them. I'm going, yep, that's the one. Where's a bone that I can carve a ring out of?
But is
Yeah.
her father like some lord of some castle somewhere? You have to convince him for hand in marriage first.
I've met her parents. Her mother was a bit apprehensive about me, but I've won them over. Um, right now, and we are soon to marry. So
Congratulations, Simon.
thank you.
So going back to the
Yeah.
hazelnut tree, because at what point do you harvest the hazelnut seed, and to either store it or harvest it to plant it?
Now this is something quite interesting. A lot of this knowledge has gotten completely lost, sadly. Um, you want to harvest the hazel, and the hazelnut is green, and
Yeah.
it's turning a little bit brown. That's the perfect moment. You have a window of about a week. then every single animal in the animal king, like they kind of become edible for other animals. So you'll compete with squirrels. You'll compete with basically anything that knows that hazelnut is edible at that point. So as soon as they're turning a little bit brown and you can kind of get them out of the husk, that's when you harvest them, and then you just put them into a dry place to dry, like you know where you dry stuff. Just put it there. Um,
Okay, so you can't plant it immediately then,
um, you can plant it as soon as it goes out of the husk. You can plant it. Um, that's what I do. I Part of my harvest is going into my little satchel to plant.
okay. But you see, you can harvest the hazel when it's just going brown and keep it in storage for whenever you want to plant it. And I guess you plant it over the winter time.
Yeah. Over winter time, springtime. Yeah. Like uh,
Yeah.
like right now would be good, good time.
Do you plant it with the husk or you take it out the husk and plant it?
I yeah, I would get them out of the husk when I harvest them. So without the
Right.
husk, yeah.
But why wouldn't you keep the husk to sort of protect it from like mold and stuff like that while it's in the ground?
Mm, uh, because you harvest it when you can like easily get it out of the husk.
Right.
So the husk just doesn't really stay on, and it doesn't
Right.
provide it much protection. You know, if you've ever tried to bite into a hazelnut, there, have enough protection on the ground.
Yeah, yeah, true, true. But I just would have thought it would be more natural to just because it would
Yeah.
fall from the tree in its husk.
No, it actually falls out of the husk.
Right,
I
right,
mean,
okay.
depends on the hazelnut tree. To be fair, there's some species that keep the husk on them. So I guess just watch your local trees. What should they do? Copy that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Because I was in Ukraine, we've got a hazelnut tree in the garden, and I was starting
Mm,
to enjoy them. Actually, I didn't know you could eat the hazelnuts from the hazel tree because my knowledge of botany isn't that good. But I watched this grey squirrel what it was doing, and it was eating those nuts, and then I discovered the hazelnuts in the hazel tree. So I knew about the hazel tree before the hazelnuts because of the videos on like YouTube of making bows and using it for construction material. But this squirrel just they were just turning brown as you said, but the squirrel had basically stolen all the hazelnuts and I couldn't find any more after about a couple of weeks.
yeah, yeah. It's a mad dash for hazelnuts every year. Um. Oh wow, it's really cool. You watch the animals and kind of do what they do. It's a good way to like um get along with nature. What should they
I
do?
I
Copy.
guess I'm sort of backlashing against the amount of time that I'm spending on the computer and TV doing programming, and
Mm,
I just it means nature's more of a treat for me, and I would rather be into nature than to do all this stuff inside of the metaverse and VR and explore galaxies in the metaverse versus going out there and just learning about God's creation that He made. It's
absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that. My fiance is actually a IT person.
uh-huh,
She knows like all sorts of she does coding, she does accountancy, and a
uh-huh.
lot of her friends that are accountants are really into bushcraft. That kind
What?
of threw me out of the loop. Yeah, it seems to be like a running thread. Like all the bushcraft, like, a lot of the bushcraft people in the UK I've met are accountants, are IT technicians, are cybersecurity people. It's it's weird, but I mean I'm happy. But it's so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. I still haven't discovered many people that are interested in this kind of stuff at all, pretty much.
Can I recommend something?
Hmm.
The Bushmoot. It's in the UK, near Bristol, if I'm correct. It's UK, it's like an English speaking meetup of all the bushcraft enthusiasts. And they've got
Okay,
lots of workshops and like really network there. It's really great.
okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
So going back to traditional farming methods, you say that we would not be able to support a current population with modern farming methods. What if we replaced it with, say, for example, all our wheat fields with like walnuts and hazelnut trees. Would that not be enough to sort of make help us survive?
Well, think off the top of my head, if we managed to uh basically convert all of our farmland into food forests, we'd have a more varied diet, we'd have a healthier diet, um, and we could feed them all. If we like converted all like the open spaces we have that we don't really use so much, and roofs as well, we could feed us all. It would be a great thing for the environment as well. Um, I just see, I think it will be a massive change in diet because right now we're lots of carbs, lots of simple carbs, lots of sugar, processed foods, and we basically go from that to acorn pancakes, like a hazelnut meal, wild onions, and squirrel. So,
I'm up for it
uh,
because most of the stuff that we eat is not food.
absolutely, me too.
If I
Yeah,
was Prime
I'd be
Minister,
up
that's the
for
first thing I would do, man.
it. I hope you are then. Vote Nikos. Um,
Well,
definitely.
I would rather be an advisor to a Prime Minister than a Prime Minister. It's too stressful.
Yeah, it's a hard job, isn't it? Um, yeah, but I don't think it would be a really popular thing to do because imagine imagine a society, a British society, a German society without beer. Oh God, you have a revolt on your hands within a minute.
Well, we can put an offer out
Also,
there. We can say to any business owner or farmer out there that wants to try this and has a square mile of land, or let's just say a square 400 meters of land, can hire me and
mm,
Simon to go there and do a blueprint of how much calories we can do in 4 or 5 years and do a documentary on it. That's if anyone's listening to this, I'm certainly up for it, and I'm sure I can
I'm
find other
absolutely
people
up
to
for it.
help. Yep, there we are. So just get in touch with us, guys, if you want to do that.
Absolutely. Um, I think I actually know a farmer that would do that.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, it's a friend of mine. He wants me to like turn his current estate into a food forest. So
let's do it. Let's do it.
yeah, I'm I've looked at his property. He has swamp there as well. So I'm sowing um what's it called? Cattails there. You know cattails? You know you can eat those.
Yeah. They're ribosomes.
Yeah, you can make flour of those. I'm sowing some like old uh plum and apple tree varieties and of course lots of hazelnut and wild onion there. So I'll keep in touch with you and tell you how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, you look at YouTube videos, people make a video on how much food they can grow from like 3 or 4 raised beds in their garden, but no one's done this. And to be honest, somebody else can copy this idea and do it for all I care. It's great. I'm so frustrated with the lack of preparation society has for any real disaster regarding fuel or oil crisis. We're dependent on oil for our lorries driving for the roads. They need oil, all this tar and stuff. So anything that's a buffer to starvation, I'm completely for.
Yeah, I'm currently like I have a backup bag and everything, but I'm trying to get like lots of the skills and then build the things I need for the bag myself. So I'm currently making a water bottle out of spruce bark. I'm gonna make a grass sleeping mat, a grass like the one that Etsy had, something similar. And I think, yeah, I agree with you. We are definitely really underprepared for anything major. Recently in Austria, I don't know if you've heard it, there was a flooding, and our military basically went, "Oh, we can't help them." Yeah, sorry, you're on your own. And that was like with everything in Austria working. So I wanted to imagine like how it'll go if Austria can't help, like just it breaks down. Don't know what
Yeah,
will
for
happen then.
me, for me, politicians are sleeping. If we have all these jobs that are going to be replaced by AI, you're going to have a lot of unemployed people that are hungry. So why not provide the infrastructure? I don't know how you do it. If people has farmland that's sitting down and there nothing, the government should use it for providing a free resource of not only maintaining the topsoil but also to have the harvest for these hazelnuts and people are missing a lot. It's fun to go out and harvest fruits like this and food. It's a good social experience as well.
Yeah, I think a good choice would be like a cutting stop, like for fruit trees, so you can cut down oaks, hazelnuts, walnuts, um, horse chest, I don't know, just normal chestnuts. Maybe that would be a good idea for like lumber companies. Like those trees are under protection.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's innovation that could be done in this way. So like you could invent some harvesting material for walnuts because walnuts they're sort of they start falling about 2 to 3 weeks. The walnuts are continually falling. So you could design some kind of mesh that wraps around the base that collects the walnuts so that you can make it easier to harvest and it would still let the light go through and that you could just have so much innovation, I think, in natural forests, food forests.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree. There, there's there's people that are using drones to reseed uh forests with like airdropping biodegradable seed pods that then burrow into the ground and they can fly over areas that we can't really access with our machinery. Just basically just drop saplings,
Yeah.
and in a few years they'll grow more and more. It's That's innovation there.
Yeah. You could also like biohack squirrels so that they instead of eating the hazelnuts, they harvest them and return them to some depot or train some guard squirrels that fight off the other squirrels so that humans can harvest the seeds and stuff.
Or just put out a few snares and you got dinner. Squirrel tastes surprisingly nice. Um, tastes like nuts almost. There's a weird mix. Like, have you ever eaten rabbits? Kind of tastes
Yeah.
like rabbit, but nutty. It's quite nice.
And they don't carry lots of diseases and stuff.
No, they don't. They're really muscular, and their hide makes a great bowstring.
Oh,
Rawhide
really?
from a squirrel. Yeah, rawhide from a squirrel, great bowstring. Like the Ishi, I don't know if you know him. He was the last Native American that still lived the old way, and apparently his preferred bowstring material was the rawhide from a squirrel.
What was his name? Ishi.
Ishi.
Could you spell that?
Isishe.
Okay. I get he's on YouTube or something.
Well, he died in 1908, so I
Okay.
don't think that was a bit before YouTube.
Maybe it's time traveling Ishi or something. Okay.
Yeah. It's actually
But
a thing that, sorry, go ahead.
everything you're saying is like so interesting. Like I could spend half an hour talking about rawhide and just to learn how to to make a bowstring from it. Because I was wondering how I'd make a bowstring from fibers from plants and stuff, but that would just be really a real pain to do that. Like, I mean, I know there's a nettle
Yeah.
fibers, but they're not as strong as people say they are. Really, I don't really like working with nettle fibers.
I actually work with metal fibers.
Uh-huh.
Um, I have I have a little string that's the thickness of a bowstring, and it can
Uh-huh.
hold a 10 kilo like weight.
Okay. I mean,
Um,
that's not a lot though, but 10 kilograms is a very lightweight bow.
yeah, you can still do some stuff with it. There's there's two plant fibers that I know of for certain that can make a bowstring. That's
Uh-huh.
yucca, which is actually a lot of people grow as an ornamental plant. I was in Dublin, and there's a surprising amount of yucca plants. Even the yucca banana variety, which has edible fruit, and they just rot there. No, because nobody knows they're edible. Um,
It's funny
but
the no it's funny the lack of knowledge people have on this sort of stuff.
yeah, yucca banana tastes good. It's quite nice. It tastes like banana almost. But yeah, yucca and what's it called? I think it's ash. No, there's a tree. Basswood bark. That cordage I have made a bowstring from, and it is like that is very strong. like on the bowstring I can like hang myself up on. Like I can pull myself up on it and it holds me.
I thought you said I can hang myself with a string. Like,
No, no, I like
yeah.
living. Um,
But doesn't doesn't
no,
doesn't
yeah.
doesn't nettle fiber require a lot of maintenance because it just seems to be so fragile?
I don't know. I like to use nettle. You're supposed to harvest it after the flowers.
Uh-huh.
Um, that's when the fibers are strongest. And actually, fun fact, you can make clothing out of nettle fibers the same way you make it out of linen. It's
Hmm.
basically the same work. And the Germans, when they were running out of fibers, they were actually making their uniforms in the Second World War out of nettles,
Oh,
and they were really good. You just get less fibers than if you do it from the actual linen plant. But yeah, it's very doable. Like a lot of Neolithic finds we have is nettle fibers.
so Simon, what exactly is rawhide?
Oh, we can like if we go to the topic of rawhide, we can talk about tanning, and that'll be a topic for the next 3 hours. But rawhide, essentially, so you have a deer, whatever animal, you pull the hide off. Now you have a flesh side and a hair side. You scrape the flesh off and the hairs, and you dry it. And now you have rawhide. Rawhide.
So
It
you're
will not
talking
rot as long.
it won't rot because
Sorry,
you
yeah.
remove it won't rot because you remove the flesh and from the flesh side of the hide, right?
Yeah.
So
Um,
how do you take rawhide from squirrel and then turn it into a bowstring?
there's a really good video on YouTube about this, but I'll try to explain it. Essentially, you do what I just said. Remove the flesh, the fat from one side, the hairs from the other. If you don't want to scrape them, just take a bucket of ash and put the squirrel skin inside, and the hairs will fall out after about 10 minutes. If you actually use, it depends on what ash you use. You can actually color the hide. If you, for example, use the ash from a beech tree, it'll go red slightly. Um, but then you uh depends what tools you have. If you have metal tools, wait for it till it dries. Try to dry it out as straight as possible, and then just draw on it a spiral that'll go, closer and closer and closer and closer, and have the same distance between each uh, spiral, I guess. So it's one like same diameter spiral going to the end. Then you just cut that out with a pair of scissors, or bit some have scissors to go after that, or a knife. If you don't have metal tools, um, stone tools, it's better to cut them when it's wet. So you have the wet rawhide, and then you draw it on with a piece of charcoal or whatever you have, and cut it into the spiral, and then you basically do a bowstring with it. The most success I've had with it was just three of these strands. You need about three squirrel hides, and just twist like put them on tie them to one end to a stick at a tree, and the other end to a stick you can twist. Just twist it in on itself, and then let it dry when it has the length you want, and then you just fold each loop back and attach it to itself. And then you basically got a rawhide bowstring. What you can also do is a Flemish twist bowstring. I have not done that one. I will get into it soon. Um, but it's also a thing you can do. Another material for bowstrings is gut. So preferably gut from a herbivore like a deer or elk. Same principle.
It sounds very messy and smelly though.
It's actually not. If you scrape the flesh off, it'll smell a little bit. Interestingly, it doesn't smell of rot, of course, but it's quite a clean work. Been building drums. That's just rawhide as well. Quite pleasant, actually.
And drums are good for armies marching.
Oh yeah. got a Siberian shaman drum. Uh, it's made by a guy that's one of the few people left in Europe that builds nomadic, like these recurve bows the Mongols had with the traditional tools from scratch. So that guy knows his stuff when it comes to height. This one.
I guess if you think back to the Roman times and when they're marching around Europe, I guess all the Roman soldiers would have been somehow experts in bushcraft and survival.
Mm, the Roman army, kind of. You knew how to make a fire and cook your food, but they had a large supply train with them. The bushcraft that they would do would mostly consist of fortifications and like ramming stakes into the ground to prevent cavalry from charging into your camp. If you really like want to look at a warrior that had to know how to survive in the wild, Scottish Highlander is a great
Right.
example of it. They had to supply themselves for quite some long periods of time, hike through. If you've been to Scotland, um, yeah, that is quite challenging terrain to hike with not modern tools. And then they fought quite ferociously. And there's actually Fan Labidosi. He is a good YouTube channel, and he goes into how the Highlands lived and how they did bushcraft. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I've seen a channel like that. I'm not sure if it's the same guy, but he once talked about like the Highland kilt and how that's like a it's like a jacket combo, tarp combo, sleeping bag thing.
Yeah, I have a wool cloak, a wool blanket I wear as a cloak. I sometimes I prefer that over modern materials.
It just seems like the way to go because like when I'm hiking, usually I'm just weighed down by like there's not really many multiple use items because like the backpack itself is just dead weight. All it is a container, but it's not providing you much insulation apart from your back or your chest if you're wearing it back to front. So if you could like combine the cloak with the as a carrying capacity, it just seems like you're saving the weight of a backpack immediately, you know?
Yeah, good example of this would be the bedroll. So you take like a fur, you put a blanket on it or whatever you want to sleep in, and then you start and you put some of your gear in, you roll it up, and then you can attach straps to it and carry it like that. It's what we did for like thousands of years. And if you combine that with pack frame, then you only have to carry like 3 sticks on your back,
Uh-huh.
and you can just tie the rest of your equipment to it.
It just makes more sense to have a material that is functional when it's wet in terms of insulation because I personally have started to hate Gore-Tex just because it's just takes so long to dry. Gore-Tex is good if you're basically have a home every night to dry your shoes in. Okay, you'll keep your feet dry for about 6 hours of rain, but then you has to dry for 2 or 3 days indoors before it becomes dry again. But just with natural materials, just make a lot more sense. Like I want to save up for one of those um, beaver mittens that are like £400 on the Canadian Preppers channel because they're just so much more functional than these modern materials that just get wet and then they're useless. For anything like longer than like 2 or 3 days, you need natural materials are always going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. I did 2 hikes. One of us was with my Gore-Tex jacket, one with my wool cloak. The wool cloak was soaked in the rains after a few hours, but it was still warm. The Gore-Tex took a bit longer to soak through, and then I was just miserable. And you cannot get that dry in time. It is
Yeah.
a hassle.
So when the Gore-Tex jacket is wet, is it very cold?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No
it's just a
insulation
rip-off.
left there.
Yeah, it's a rip-off Gore-Tex, man. It's just a scam. It's
A- And it's so loud. Like when you move with it. Like, every animal in the forest knows you're coming. Whereas wool, it's quite silent. So when I'm trying to watch animals, I prefer natural materials over synthetics.
One thing I don't know how they survived with the back in the day is especially the Highlanders, how did they survive without a midgie net, like a fine mesh midgie net that covers your whole body when you sleep?
I mean, because of the bugs.
Yeah, the midgies, Scottish midgies, horrible, almost worse than mosquitoes.
Yeah, we have a similar problem here in Austria sometimes with these flies almost. They bite. They don't
Yeah,
sting, they bite.
horse flies.
Um, yeah, horse flies. We have them in the like in June. The
Yeah,
entire field covers them. How I deal with them is there's a certain plant that it's smoke that they hate, and if you smoke your clothes in them, they will avoid you like the plague.
uh-huh.
I know it in German. I don't know the name in English. I'm sorry. Um, and the second solution is to just slather yourself in mud.
Right. And you also have a problem with, I believe, ticks because I've found a few ticks in Austria. They are quite aggressive.
Yeah, ticks are an issue. It depends on the region. Um, we have we've been spared mostly with ticks, but if you get higher up, they are they're there definitely, and just waiting.
So,
Bewahrung.
so, so basically, if you want to survive long term in the wild, you basically have to live like a pig, cover yourself in mud all the time.
Or just don't go anywhere near the swampy or like damp areas. That's where I like to hang out.
Yeah.
If you go into the forest in Austria, the horseflies literally don't follow you. I've never had a problem with them in the forest. Um, and or you don't have to like be have like a thick layer of mud on them. A lot of native tribes they use clay, just a thin layer of it, and the flies won't bother you either. Well, I suppose yeah,
A
long
layer of
term,
clay.
yeah, clay works too, and it can be a thinner layer of clay than with mud. Some tribes in the Amazon rainforest they use certain herbs in that paste, so it's more of a repellent again. But but yeah, like the swamps will be fun to hike through.
I heard that if you wear women's tights on your legs, it'll stop ticks from attaching to you.
I haven't heard that one.
If you're
I
walking
might have to
through
ask them.
swamps, yeah, if you're walking through
Hmm.
swamps and you wear women's tights under your trousers, then you won't be like leeches and like ticks. They won't bite you.
Ah, so Alicia's feminist.
Well, this is a
The
guy who's got a YouTube channel. He's ex-soldier, and so like if you're planning to wade through a lot of swamps, then it's better to have a couple. I feel like I would say maybe two pairs of women's tights, just if you don't want to deal with all the ticks and stuff.
that's smart. Well, I can write that on that.
Yeah, I mean,
Nice little one.
ticks could bite through like it just puts them off this layer of fiber. They don't like
Yeah.
to, yeah,
Didn't like to put in the work.
or maybe it's just leeches it puts off because I don't think ticks are under the water.
Mm. The leeches love good water.
It does something anyway.
Better than nothing, probably.
I find it quite interesting that you said something that's not often quite said around survival bushcraft. You said if you have metal tools. So that's also quite good because I also try and think about what if I didn't have certain tools. Granted, there is so much metal in the environment that you could fashion a knife pretty quick from any type of metal that's around, but you seem to have a backup of the stones. You've thought about a lot of
Yes.
techniques to do what you need to do to survive with just stone material.
Yeah. I do know flint knapping. I know how to I make arrowheads. I've made axe heads after the axe still. Um, I made knives out of stone. They're quite sharp. I have an obsidian dagger with a bone hilt that I'm quite proud of.
So I must have spent around 10 hours looking around for flint in various countries, Scotland, Ukraine, Austria.
Mm.
Haven't ever found any flint. What I have found is quartz, and I can make cutting tools from that reasonably easily.
Quartz is good, yeah. Um, the there's been a few cultures we've found quartz tools from, and they make spearheads from them sometimes, and they use them to hunt bison. So quartz is definitely quite a good rock for tools.
Hmm.
It's a bit hard to work with, in my
Yeah, I
experience.
find that the only way that I can get a cutting edge is to basically throw the quartz at another stone and hope that the shard don't
Mm.
stab me in the eye or something.
Yeah, it's not the nicest rock to work with. Okay, I will give you that. We have
Yeah, you
luckily we
and
have a lot of chert here. Sorry,
what was that? Pardon?
we have a lot of chert where I'm from, so I don't have to resort to quartz.
I find that the angles you get from quartz cutting are not very good. So the most um acute angles that I'd get from a quartz cut is probably around 30 degrees. Whereas with flint
Mm.
you can get really acute angles like 10 degrees and that kind of stuff to make blades.
Yeah, yeah. Flint is much better. We have it's really interesting. We have trading lanes in the Stone Age from areas in Germany, like to all over Europe, because they had such a high quality flint there, and they
Uh-huh.
just traded it everywhere else.
So they made paths through these flint places.
They had flint mines. We have found like Paleolithic, so old Stone Age flint mines where they dug down 30, 40 meters, used log ladders and mined flint. I suppose actually one of the reasons that some scientists think we adopted microlith tools, so just shards, like small shards for arrowheads and knives, is because Europe overgrew with forests, and so flint was way harder to access. So you became more like saving with it. We didn't make these like big stone tools anymore. We made more intricate, like smaller ones because we didn't have more of it. Like we didn't, it was harder to get.
The metal age is just such a big advancement over flint because if you think of like your typical D2 steel or 440 steel that's just cheap steel, but it just lasts for almost like a lifetime. Whereas with flint, you're probably going to need to make a new knife every, I don't know, 3 weeks or something like that.
Um, I've been using my knife in bushcraft for butchering stuff. Lasted me a year now. I've had to retouch it sometimes, but as long as you don't like jam it, like punch it against bone, it's fine. Um, what I think,
Flint knife.
of course, metal, yeah,
Okay.
it's not comparable to a metal knife.
Mhm. Yeah, metal is such a luxury. We just don't appreciate it if you try to do anything in bushcraft without a knife. We're so
Yeah,
lucky to have this.
yeah, we are definitely. Though metal that also comes at a cost. Um, for example, in Europe, we lost around a quarter of the forests in the Iron Age because you need an obscene amount of charcoal to make iron and iron tools.
Yeah.
It's some Native American tribes they actually had copper, but they abandoned copper because they noticed that they had to cut down like almost all their forests to be able to equip themselves with this. So it became mostly a rarity for um used for like kidnapping tools.
And nowadays
But yeah,
we can make metal without chopping down forests with gas and
mm,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we use mostly coal in steel production still. Not now, not charcoal, but underground. So previous, like really old trees, essentially, instead of old trees, which I guess is a step
S-
up.
So the difference between coal and charcoal is that charcoal's made by burning wood without any oxygen, and coal is made by just pressure over lots of time.
Yep, essentially, yeah. It's also more efficient burning wise. Like the coal on the ground is more efficient. Um, I forge, I forge, knives and stuff. I tried forging with charcoal for a bit because we didn't have any forge like stone coal. You needed a lot of charcoal. So yeah, coal is quite good for metalworking and like, forging and getting that
Man,
out.
I didn't know you knew about forging. Like, if there was like a World War III and we had to restart civilization, you would definitely be one of those guys that they allowed to stay in the tribe, because of the skills you have.
Oh, thank you, thank you. But everybody has skills to bring to the table.
Well, not if you're a programmer and there's
Forever-
no electricity.
Yeah, but the thing is, programmers right now, program is way more useful than everything I do.
Well, I wouldn't say that
Like,
because a lot of people my field are finding it hard to get work now with AI and this company's
oh,
cutting back
true.
costs. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that now. Hard
That's
skills is where it's at, farming and that kind of stuff.
hmm. Luckily, I was on I did a metalwork apprenticeship, and they taught me plumbing as well and electrician work, like the basics at least. So,
Fantastic.
I,
Nothing
I
better than that.
yeah, I try to get like the most wide variety of skills I can, and just like learn enough of that skill so I can be semi-proficient with it, and then move on to the next one. Like I'm not a master flint knapper. My knife doesn't look great, but it works, and it's a knife. And then I move on to the next skill, like bow making and arrow making. Again, I'm not the perfect arrow maker, but it'll kill. It'll kill a deer. So I'm satisfied with it, and I move on to the next skill. Because in an apocalypse or anything, like let's say I'm in a tribe with people that he's been a master bow maker. Well, I have other skills I could still use. Generalist thinking, like the hunter gatherers. Hunter gatherers, they're all generalists. They all know how to do things, everything that the tribe knows, that guy knows. So that's what I'm like trying to do.
So the trouble with hunting in post-apocalyptic time is that a lot of these people have this romantic idea, like, okay, if the worst comes to the worst, I'm just going to go out and hunt animals. But if everybody's doing that, there's going to basically have enough food for like a week for everybody because there's just hardly any. The ratio of wild animals now to city dwellers is just you just cannot sustain a population of city dwellers on wild animals.
Absolutely. And I think there's a bit of nuance in this. I think the first thing to go wouldn't be wild animals because wild animals they still have all the instincts. They they still know how to hide. There's a lot of times that even modern hunters with cars still working and they go to their places, they still don't shoot something. I think the first thing that would go would be livestock. That would be the first thing people steal before they go hunting. And they will be onto the deer and the hawks. Which on one hand, the game population would definitely be reduced. But on the other, imagine hunting with a rifle. You shoot once, and now everybody knows you're there.
Yeah, yeah.
Not only the animals, but also other hunters. And they might decide that you're an easier prey than the hawks that keep running away from them. And hawks are like wild hawks in natures. The Texans are hunting them with night vision from helicopters with automatic weapons, and they still can't get them under control.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But hogs
I
could
have
be a
some
really
hope for
good
the wild.
survival nutrition, though. Like if there was like a
Yeah,
World War III, having hogs around would
hogs are
be
great.
great. Like you would be like you want to import them in, as soon as there's like that war kicks off. Let's get the hogs in, folks. We can eat.
Yeah. What Nikos for prime minister? He's running under the platform of Hawks for Britain. But yeah, we have wild hogs here in Austria, and our hunters are like quite experienced hunters as well. But like they kill a few of them, and then the hogs learn where the hunters like shoot from, and then it's just not there anymore. That's why I like the bow and arrow. It's quite silent. I can make the ammo always myself, and I don't immediately broadcast my location to every animal in the valley and every human in the valley.
Have you ever tried
It's been a
throwing
lot of
sticks?
funny you mentioned that. Behind me are two of them on the wall.
Did you make them?
I haven't tried one. Sorry?
It's great exercise throwing those
Oh,
sticks.
definitely. For instance, great. Yeah. Um,
Have you?
I also think, sorry?
No, on you go. Sorry, there's a lag here, but it's okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Was my mistake. Um, the I also think that the wild game population would come back after a bit because most prognosis say that in a complete breakdown allows at least 80% of the population will die in the first 3 months. And after that initial pressure is gone, I think a lot of deer are quite quick breeders, and hogs would repopulate quite quickly. You
You're
also got to
talking about
think that
80% of the humans or 80% of the hogs?
80% of the humans
Right.
in the first 3 months, 4 months, which is depressing, but considering how dependent we are on food delivery and a lot of us are dependent on medicine. Um, it's a depend like I have a grandfather who has Parkinson. I don't I don't know what to do, to be honest. I tried to stockpile some of his meds, but don't know what I'm gonna do like when they run out.
Yeah, that's one of the things that frustrate me about like, our leadership is that you hear these statistics like 80% or 90% of humans would die. If I was leader of the country, I would want to make sure that the population would not, you wouldn't have, like, I would want everyone to be okay, I want to have enough food in place and people that are trained enough that our economy can support each other if there's for whatever reason, the EMP or like a, oil shortage or something like that.
Yeah,
But everything's short-term election stuff, and also if in a normal in a like a Neolithical society, if you didn't work, then you would be asking the tribe to support you, and like you're living on the edge there. So if you choose not to work, then you're basically you're risking of starving the tribe. So we should be people should not be firstly people should not be paid low enough that it's make more money sitting at home on benefits versus working. That's just but produced a lot by the greed of people that are like a CEO paid 150 times the amount of a lower worker. This is wrong. So we need to sort out our wage difference problem and we need to make it incentive for people to work so that we can survive an apocalypse. A moral issue.
yeah, and make it jobs that are fulfilling to do. Um, like crafts jobs. I really like making things with my own hands, but I don't think like imagine being a retail salesperson. I know a few of them, and then their jobs are not fulfilling them at all. And yeah, wouldn't want to work in retail, if I'm being honest, and they're getting more paid roles. Um, but yeah, maybe food storage is another thing we don't really address like as a state because it is a big what if, isn't it? it's a big like what if something bad happens, and maybe our politicians just don't want to contemplate it. You know, could be. So like
Yeah,
if you
I think
don't
there should be
say
a
it, it'll
wealth.
go away.
I think there should be a wealth tax on the top, don't know, 10% of people that some kind of survival fund, so that I mean this is for their own benefit as well. So like 10% of the top richest people in the country goes to underground storage of food and survival preparations for like any kind of natural disaster or world war. You know, that seems like fair. If you're making a lot of money from the country and you know money breeds money, then you should provide for those that are basically your slaves. You know, for want of a better work. You know, if you're getting if someone's getting paid 150 times less than you, then they're basically a slave. So you should provide for them at least in an apocalypse scenario.
Yeah, funny enough, the super rich are actually disaster prepping. They're just prepping for themselves.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
they're buying massive bunkers. Bill Gates bought up like a, few 100,000 acres of farmland. Um, so they are prepping. It's just not prepping for the rest of us.
Yeah, I know, I know. It's immoral. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that we shouldn't need having high tax is not really cool. It's just that I think taxes are useful because of the selfishness of men. Most, I would say, rich people are greedy. So like they if left to themselves, they wouldn't give as Jesus commanded them to give and share, you know, like if you have a coat and you have two coats, give one to your friend who needs it. So taxes are sort of a way to mitigate the rich greed. But I mean, I prefer
Mm.
to do my own charity stuff, which I won't go into, versus giving taxes because like I don't see where that money is going. I can't control it. I can't give it to people that I know that are they want to work but they're stuck. So you know, there's a frustration there in the modern tax system for me. Don't like it.
Yeah. And I'm not really rich, so I can't give much money away to charity, but I do volunteer work. And I'm making small, I guess, goodie bags, would you call them? So if my neighbors are in need and in a disaster, or if refugees come through, I can at least give them a little bit. Just as some food, some water disinfection tablets, feminine hygiene products, and a small like folder on hey, how to stay alive. Maybe make a latrine.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I
and I
give
have
more of my yeah. On you go. Sorry, I keep putting.
and I have like 10 of them now. And I'm getting more of them. So uh, I hope like I can give them out to some neighbors in need to keep them alive. You know, those are them
Yeah, I
that
mean,
need them.
teaching them how to survive off the land their time, that's more valuable than money in a sense. It's just that our system's it's very greedy, you know, like this whole war in Russia, Ukraine, everything went up in price, but a lot of the landlords just keep putting up the rent, you know, and it's just like, you know, it's just there's no solidarity.
Yeah, I'm doing the certification to be a survival trainer right now
Okay.
this year and next year. And my goal is to offer survival courses. You know, I'll charge material costs, but essentially for free for most people. And yeah, if you want to donate a little bit, you can. But overall, I would just want to spread the awareness and the skills. You know, rewilding. That's a thing that's been going around. I really like this idea that you're trying to help people to kind of find what we lost.
Well, and this podcast is going to really help because a lot of people that are not used to listening to this kind of stuff, that like my show, they're going to be go home thinking about where they should sow their seeds, hazelnut seeds.
Mm. I'm really grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Cool. So yeah, so Simon, I'm really looking forward to following your progress and looking forward to hear people's comments on our radical natural ideas.
Me too.
Anything else you want to leave with our audience for this first interview?
I would just like to say that Mother Nature, as God created her, it's quite nurturing, just like He who created her. If you take care of her, she'll take care of you. Don't fight against it. Sow what you can, try to heal it in every way you can, and try to rediscover what we once lost. Thank you.
Cheers, Simon. And if anyone has any questions to Simon, they can write it in the YouTube comments and maybe he'll have time to come and answer some questions now and again. But really appreciate having you on the
I'm on
show.
Reddit. I'm on
Okay.
Reddit. If anyone wants to hook me up, Infinite Goose.
All right.
If
I'll leave it in the show notes.
okay, thank you.
Cool. See you around and thanks everybody for listening. See you again next time on the Nikos Show.